I'm really encouraged to see the room full, which I think demonstrates that this is a really, really important subject that is on our hearts. I guess around the room there are going to be some folks that are here who are 18 to 35 that were born between the mid-80s and 2000, but probably not too many. And so that in itself, of course, presents us with a question, does it not? Now, hopefully, over the course of the next hour, even if what the aim is not to provide answers necessarily, it will begin a thought process. It will begin an ongoing conversation about this generation that is so often referred to as the missing generation in our churches, regrettably so. Our desire is that this is a generation that is reached with the good news of Jesus, with the hope of the gospel. And it's not necessarily always for the sake of trying, I think you'll agree, in our churches, that this generation appears to be missing. This has been a notable thing across our whole family of churches as we look. With a couple of exceptions, this is a generation that is not well represented amongst Baptist churches in the UK. And as a union, we decided that we'd gather together some millennials, people who are 18 to 35 years old, to really begin the conversation as, okay, why is that? And more importantly, what can we do to address some of these issues? So at the beginning of this year, in January, we gathered at IMC, the BMS base in Birmingham, and together with a group of millennials that were drawn from across the UK, we began that conversation. You just saw on the screen. This is just one of the things after a bit of a session that we had that we've begun. Today is really about us hearing from those people. Much as I would love to say that I am not a millennial. And there were only one or two of us that gathered at IMC earlier in the year that would fall into that category. You don't want to hear from me. We need to hear from people who are leaders, millennials themselves. And at this particular junction, for us as a family of churches, as Lynn just talks about our future as a family of churches, I am passionate that the voice of this generation is not just consulted, but actually is part of the vision for where we go as a family of churches. Not that it's only this generation, but especially this generation is heard well, and those younger than it, when we look to the future of our family of churches. So, it delights me then to be able to introduce some millennials to you. Not just any, some absolute stars. So, Daniel is the pastor, the assistant pastor for community and discipleship at Rayleigh Baptist Church. He's going to lead the seminar for us. And then later on we're going to hear from Steve Sutton. Steve is the minister at Corby Newham Baptist Church, just up the road near Middlesbrough. And then later on, really good to have Katie with us. Thanks for coming, Katie, who is the church relations developer for Fusion. If you don't know what Fusion is, then Katie will tell you. But they have been doing outstanding work linking young people and students with local churches. So they will talk a little bit more to you later on. I'm going to hand over to Daniel. Enough for me. Thank you, mate.
Thank you very much, Carl. So just as an intro before Steve and I get on to the main chunk of things, and what we're going to try and do today is do a really positive seminar, because I think a lot of the time when we talk about the 18 to 35 gap in churches, it can be quite a negative conversation about all of the things that we're not doing and all of the problems that arise. And you end up leaving seminars like that feeling a bit frustrated, maybe informed about what the problems are, but not really feeling equipped and inspired to go away and actually put something practical in place. And we didn't want that to be the case today. So Steve and I are going to go through it and sort of alternate our 5 top tips for how to engage millennials. Probably as an introductory point, it's worth mentioning that although we use that term millennial, which is sort of 18 to 35 group, it doesn't actually represent really a single demographic of people. There's probably 3 separate demographics within the millennial bracket that it's important to actually have distinctive ways of engaging with. The first would be students. So for those, that's mainly relevant for those of you in university cities. The finances that students have or don't have, the flexibility in terms of time when they wake up and when they go to sleep, compared to your young adults who are in work, the amount of finances they have when they wake up, when they go to sleep. compared to families, so couples with children, when you wake up and when you don't sleep. As a father of 2 and Steve's a father of 4. This is 4, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He keeps popping them out. We've seen the transition. Very gifted, bless him. The difference between those 3 groups, actually, as we're thinking about how to engage in your church, in your local context, whether you're in a university city, you're in a town, you're in a village, or anything in between, the most important thing is that missional, that missiological understanding of I have to look at my context. If you don't actually have millennials living anywhere near you, then don't try and reach them if there aren't actually any in the demographic around you. If there are in the demographic around you, then ask yourself, are they students? Are they young working adults? Are they families? And therefore, how do we adapt what we put on, what events, what projects, and how we seek to engage? So before we get cracking on those 5 top tips, I thought it would be good to just turn to one another and ask the question to the person sitting next to you. One of these 2. Either what challenges do you think that we face in engaging millennials? Or, being optimistic, what successes have you had in engaging millennials? Just give you a couple of minutes, turn to the person next to you. What challenges do you think we face? Or what successes have you had? And we'll bring it back in a minute. Great. Love there was so much conversation going in. Maybe just 1 or 2. Which question did you go for and what did you say? Maybe someone from over this side and then we'll go to the back. A challenge that you faced or a success that you've seen with millennials? Yeah.
So one of the challenges that we identified was culture.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people in that particular demographic, they have a certain perception about church culture and they have their own general sort of culture, and as far as most people in the millennial sort of age group are concerned, the church can often seem to them utterly irrelevant. It has nothing to do with how they live their life, how they want to live their life, and they haven't really got much of an idea of what a life in a church would actually look like. So there's almost some education that needs to happen before you can have conversations about whether we want to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Culture is such a key word in all mission really, but in this in particular. And hopefully that's a lot of what we're going to touch on today. So thank you for that. That's great. Anyone from here, what did you talk about? Yeah.
A guy called Douglas Rushkoff wrote something called Present Shock, which is a development on Future Shock in the 60s, and it's that everything's happening now and it's passed you by before you even noticed. And millennials particularly are looking for some kind of apocalyptic event to stop just rushing headlong on. And I think we need to be a little bit more open and honest about end times and tell them what that apocalyptic event might be.
So thinking a bit about end times and eschatology, and not just the present here and now sort of culture.
So I think what we're seeing in the world is an acceleration towards that time, even though nobody knows when it's going to be exactly.
So there's loads of stuff that we could talk about, loads of things that we could feed back on, and it was good to hear the room buzzing with that. So here's me and Steve with sort of our 5 top tips with the things that we thought would help you culturally to adapt your congregation, things to focus on that will resonate with millennials. And important to note that these things are not things that are ungospel or that are in any way compromising the gospel. Far from it. Jesus and the gospel are the most engaging things. Jesus is the most engaging person. And if we compromise on who Jesus is, if we compromise on what the gospel is, then actually we will cease to be engaging. That is not the way that we engage millennials. Okay? So it's good to put that out there from the start. And links to the first point really, which is creating an environment of grace. Creating an environment of grace. One of the national commentators on the millennial question beyond the walls of church, because this isn't just a question for churches, it's a question actually for businesses as well. Millennials are labelled as the unleadable generation. They're accused of being prideful, entitled, flaky. And Simon Sinek's analysis is that due to various different factors, so he talks about parenting, technology, impatience and environment, and he says all of these different factors combine actually just to make a very impatient generation. So you'll get young people who are bright, who are talented, who are in parts of companies where they're passionate, and then after 7 or 8 months they'll say, I'm quitting. Why are you leaving? I'm not making an impact, whatever impact means. Because they've been taught that if you want something, then you can just have it, and you can have it right now. Yeah, Amazon, Netflix, the internet. You don't have to work hard to get the things that you want. You can just have it right now. And so their entire sense of identity and of self-esteem is built on a right now kind of culture. And then, of course, what happens when they actually get into the world of work, when they try and get into a relationship, and they expect a depth of amazing intimacy right now, it doesn't happen. It takes hard work. I want a promotion, I didn't get promoted in 6 months. It doesn't happen. It takes hard work and it takes time. And so there's this generation that expect it right now, who are bright, who are talented, who are amazing people. But they want it all too soon, and so they leave with this broken identity and this low sense of self-esteem. And if they come into a church that has an environment of condemnation, of burden, of expecting things from them before you invest in them, they're going to run a million miles. There's a song by the band 21 Pilots called Heathens. It's the theme tune for the film Suicide Squad. And there's this little refrain in the middle of the song, which for me sounded a bit like a millennial anthem. Imagine that you've got a young millennial in your church who's a Christian, and they're trying to speak to the church as a whole about their friends who are outside of the church and therefore heathens in the lyrics of this song. And your young Christian millennial might be saying this, as the song says: all my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. It's about relationship. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. And there's this generation that has this low self-esteem, this broken identity, that is wounded and bruised in so many ways. And if we come in too strong, if we try and prioritize results above relationship, or rules above relationship, which is religion rather than grace, then we're going to scare them off. I love this picture. That if you imagine you have a wound, where are you going to expose that wound? In a hospital or in a sewer? And if you imagine that our churches culturally, if there is gossip, if there is infighting, if there is judgment, if there is criticism, that's like a spiritual sewer. And no one with a wound that needs healing is going to come in and open up in that kind of an environment. But in an environment of grace, where Jesus is front and center, where you're all about investing in people, loving them, walking alongside them, not just being friendly, but becoming friends. Not just saying, hey, can you come along and serve with us, can you help us, but can you come round to our house for dinner? We just want to get to know you, we want to be in relationship with you. That kind of environment of grace is like walking into a hospital. And the bruised millennial generation with wounds that need healing and that Jesus desperately wants to meet with them so that he might heal, will come in and start to take off those bandages, and will then be able to show their scars to their friends and say, this is a place where those wounds can get healed. So that's the first thing, creating an environment of grace. Steve.
Hey guys, you're right. I'm just from up the road in Middlesbrough, and got a wonderful church up there that I've been leading for a few years. We're at the moment really developing our ministry to millennials, and we're seeing some exciting growth in that area at the moment. So I've been doing a bit of research myself, and it's great to kind of share a few top tips with Dan. Now my one here, first of all, is authenticity. Okay, write that down. Authenticity. Now, authenticity, out of all the things that you will read about millennials in any blog or book or journal or anything that you're reading about, it will be authenticity right at the top, okay? This is one of the major distinctives of this generation, that they value authenticity higher than any other value that they have. Why is this? This is because this is a generation that has been brought up and raised, being sold to by such a variety of different ways and so frequently that they've had to start craving people who don't sell to them. This is a generation that has been brought up on social media where you can just create a veneered image of yourself and you're never quite sure what is real and what is false. This is a generation that's been brought up in political scandals, the Iraq war, bankers' bonuses. All of this has fed into these guys and has made them superheroes. They have developed a superpower. They have developed a highly sensitive radar for bullshit. Excuse my French, but it's true. This is what they've developed. They can sniff out an ulterior motive and a false sentiment like nobody else, and they will run a mile from it. So authenticity has become the holy grail of this generation. When you find someone who actually lives what they talk about and actually matches up with their Instagram pictures, then it's like, it's beautiful. It's something amazing. We've found authenticity. Now, the church is an old institution. Essentially, that's how it's seen. And millennials don't know too much about you, but they do know that you're homophobic hypocrites who want the money. That's what they know about you. So millennials will generally approach the church very cautiously and probably quite suspiciously. What's your agenda? What do you want from me? Are you after my money, or are you genuine? Are you authentic? Now, I actually think that this is something to get us excited as the church. I really think this is a massive plus side to engaging with millennials. Because a whole load of you, some of you might not be, a whole load of you are genuine. A whole load of you are authentic. A whole load of you actually believe what you profess to believe. A whole load of you are actually in this stuff so that we are following the ways of Jesus and living it out with our entire lives rather than just spouting off a bunch of doctrines and beliefs. This is beautiful. This is music to millennials' ears, okay? If you want to engage with millennials, I think it's not got so much about your worship band and your coffee bars and your smoke machines. I think it's about you being you, but you genuinely being who you are. And I think it's about you communicating genuinely who you are, what you believe, and how you live to a whole new generation. You see, these people, they need to know that you're not just churchgoers. They need to know that you're not just Baptists. They need to know that you've given your lives to Jesus Christ and you are living it. And you're living it. You let your light shine. This is what it's all about. This means that we need to have churches that express honesty really well. We need to be practicing what we preach, walking the walk. When we fail and we mess up and we make mistakes, we need to make sure we hold our hands up and say sorry fast. No more cover-ups, no more sweeping it under the carpet. It doesn't work anymore, okay? This means that the social action stuff you're doing, the food banks, the debt centres and all that stuff, it is amazing. This is absolutely, it's like wasps to honey. What are wasps attracted to? They like honey? They like honey. This is, they love it. You know, we've got some of the highest volunteer rates out of any generation in the millennial generation because they love that authenticity of, it's someone who lives and actually wants to make a difference. This means that we don't avoid preaching on the tough topics in the Bible, okay? It means we don't skip over those verses where Jesus says that annoying thing that I wish he hadn't said. It means that when we don't have the right answers to the big theological questions, we don't give some textbook Christian apologetics answer. We say, do you know, I don't know. I wrestle with that. I struggle with that. But I still believe. I still know Jesus. This is important stuff. We need our churches to be open and honest places where there is genuine relational community. This generation is thirsty for it, and I think we're ready to offer it. I think the Baptist Church is ready to offer it. So I think this is really good news, because it means that for your Baptist churches, you don't have to leave today and think, right, we need to become like another church, we need to copy another system from another church. You don't. What I think you need to do is you need to learn to be you better. That you need to learn to strip away some of the facade that builds up in religious cultures. And that's painful, and that's not an easy route to go down, but it's important. If you want to reach this generation, strip away the facade of religiousness and get back to passionate Christianity.
Reminded me of a quote that I had somewhere else. Yeah, just this quote from Henri Nouwen that really links into what Steve was saying. Henri Nouwen said, "I wonder more and more if the first thing shouldn't be to know people by name, to eat and to drink with them, to listen to their stories and to share your own, to let them know with words, handshakes and hugs that you do not simply like them, but truly love them." Love a bit of Henri Nouwen. So the third thing is purpose. You notice up on the brainstorm there, which was the focus group in January, we just kind of said, right, what do millennials value? And that's everything that went down on that piece of paper. You can see grace and authenticity very much high up there. The third word is vision, and that's to do with purpose. Millennials, because of this low self-esteem, this lack of identity, other reasons as well, I'm sure, lack a sense of purpose, of meaning. And Steve was talking about volunteerism, valuing volunteering, getting involved in social justice and social action projects. Actually, don't expect millennials to come to a church service as their first port of call. They might. Far, far, far more likely that you'll get them as a volunteer on one of your social justice or social action projects first. So if your plan for discipleship is you have to come to a church service and become a Christian and then we'll let you get involved, you're cutting yourself off at the knees. If instead your plan for engaging is, doesn't matter where you are at in your faith, if you want to partner with us, if you want to volunteer with us in helping the poor, in getting out there, then come along and help out, and we'll connect some leaders up with you who will just get alongside you and get to know you. That's going to engage millennials so much more. Another thing that's been quite interesting that I've noticed the churches that engage with millennials well have started to do is, in addition to some sort of vision statement, so most churches will have a vision statement which tend to be just variations on the same thing, whether it's helping people follow Jesus or loving God and loving people or being disciples and making disciples, or it's all really the same kind of thing, isn't it? Is that the churches are starting to add almost like an imagined story, because stories communicate meaning. I was at the HTB Leadership Conference a couple of weeks ago, and there was this Catholic cardinal who'd overseen the 6th largest gathering in the world's history. It's like 9 million people in South America. And he was just this jolly Filipino fellow, and he was just so humble and just so lovely. And he said for a long time he felt so burdened when people came to him, particularly those in situations of suffering, because he didn't want them to suffer, and he felt that they had a problem that he needed to have a solution to, except he didn't have any solutions. And then he said, in a moment of revelation, he realised people didn't have problems, because problems have a solution. He said, a problem without a solution I think of as a dilemma. And dilemmas don't have solutions, and that's not what they need. What people need when they have dilemmas, unsolvable problems, is meaning. And meaning is contained in stories. And preachers, if nothing else, should be great storytellers of the great story, should they not? And so what some churches have started to do is not just have a statement, but actually to tell a story. So one church in Leicester, Leicester Vineyard Church, Steve Barber says, well, our vision is, I imagine that in 5 years' time we'll be able to walk up to any person in the town centre of Leicester and we'll be able to say to them, do you know Leicester Vineyard Church? And they'll say, yeah, someone came out and they prayed for me from that church, and then I experienced this amazing healing from what happened, and God really encountered me. Oh yeah, I know that church. I was just giving birth to my baby, and I had a friend who went to that church, and they got a load of people around them, and they gave us free meals for 2 weeks. Oh yeah, I know that. You see how you can start to picture in your mind's eye actually what that might look like. It's so much more effective in casting vision and engaging that sense of purpose. Like a person placing a sandbag seems really boring. But if you know that the flood's coming, and there's lots of people around you all placing sandbags to build a wall to protect your village, that's what vision does. It gives meaning to mundane tasks. The mundane tasks are going to stay. But if you give vision, if you give meaning to them, it helps a great deal. Final story, and then I'll hand back to Steve. There was a guy who was changing the bins at NASA, and someone said to him, "What do you do here?" He said, "I help put people on the moon."
Excellent. Last one from me. Passion. Everyone say passion. Passion. Come on. Yes. I really think that if there was one thing that you go back and do that would create the most practical response to millennials, it is being passionate, learning to express your passion for Jesus to people. It just changes everything. It really is. It's really simple. And yet some people, and particularly certain generations, actually find this harder than others. But when I come to your church, do I get a sense that you are passionate about Jesus? I'm sure I get a sense you're welcoming. I'm sure I get a sense that you're lovely, nice people. But do I get a sense that you are passionate for Jesus Christ? Now, I know our Baptist Union is absolutely full of people and churches who are passionate about Jesus and his kingdom mission to the lost and the way that he's transforming the world. But I know also that I could show up on a Sunday morning or show up on a Wednesday night at Bible study and I wouldn't get a feel of that passion. I wouldn't get a sense of actually how passionate they are. And passion's infectious. Do you know what? I listen to Radio 4. I listen to gardening shows on Radio 4 and I hate gardening. I hate gardening. But if I go Radio 4 and someone's talking passionately about gardening, I cannot turn it over. It engages you. It is infectious. And you start going, oh, I want to start gardening. Guys, are you passionate? Are you passionate about Jesus? Are you passionate about who he is? Are you passionate about his kingdom invading earth? Are you passionate about what he's doing in justice? Are you passionate about what he's doing for the poor? Are you passionate about what he's done for you? Are you expressing that passion to others? I just think we need to go on a learning curve where actually we challenge ourselves, whether you'd consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert or what. Could we challenge ourselves to maybe learn, to try hard, to word ourselves and communicate the way that we talk, the way that we run services, the way we welcome people into our buildings, the way that we do notices on a Sunday, the way our preacher preaches, so that we express that we are really passionate about this thing. We're really passionate. Does that passion come through? There's a couple in my church, by the way, that this makes me realise that passion is not an age thing. This is not young, enthusiastic people being noisy. There's a couple in my church called John and Norma, and they are in their 70s. And whenever anyone comes through the door of our church, within the first 1 or 2 weeks, they will have them round for lunch. If they show up one Sunday, they'll be like, oh, if you come next Sunday, you're coming round for lunch at our house. And do you know what? Adam and Jenny, a young 20-something married couple, came. Adam full of tattoos, long hair, feeling a little bit out of place. And John and Norma, right, you're coming round to our house for lunch. They are so passionate about Jesus. They're so passionate about our church and what we're up to and where we're going and the story that we're a part of with Jesus leading us, that I tell you what, more people come into membership of my church because of John and Norma's meals than anything else. I guarantee you, than anything else. There is no age limit to passion. So I don't care. I don't actually care what your website looks like, what your Facebook presence is like, or whether your graphic design is awesome or not. What I really care about is if you are passionate about Jesus, then work hard and learn to express it.
That's good. That's good.
So the final point, the final tip. So we looked at grace, we've looked at authenticity, we've looked at purpose, and we've looked at passion. The final one is about practice. Not theory, practice. And I find this one quite difficult for myself, because I'm a bit of a conceptual thinker. I love sitting down for hours and just figuring out how stuff works. You know, I want our vision and our values and our strategy to all kind of link beautifully and connect to everything that we do in practice. But at the end of the day, am I living in my everyday life? Am I stepping out for Jesus? There's a family, a Hindu family, who run the corner shop across the road. And I speak to them and I'm nice to them when I'm in there. But am I going to say, hey, do you want to meet up, just have a drink sometime, or coffee or something after work one day? There's something I want to talk to you about. We've got a next door neighbour, an elderly couple. One of them's sort of quite ill. Am I going to go round there and for a cup of tea or invite them round to ours and say, actually, can I pray for your husband? Am I going to do that? Am I not just going to be able to stand up at a seminar like this? Am I going to not just stand up in church, but am I going to be able to live it in the everyday? Because that's where the rubber hits the road. I want to come back next year and be able to tell you stories about those two things that I haven't just chickened out of, but the things that I've done. And actually, to millennials, you can talk the talk all you like, you can put the most beautiful talk together, but what will really impact them or not will be a story about you stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something that's a bit risky for Jesus. And doing something that's a bit risky doesn't mean travelling overseas or risking your life in this country. Often it will mean doing something that's socially uncomfortable and saying, I'd like to chat to you about Jesus because I think that you'd really benefit from knowing him. Can I just pray for you about that? You know, I don't know what's going to happen when I pray, but I believe that God can do stuff and that sometimes his kingdom does break in and does change things. So what can it hurt? Let's just have a go. Let's pray. There's a church in Northern Ireland called Causeway Coast, and the pastor there says, and he tells this story time and time again, he says, whenever we go out for a meal, he says, I challenge you to do this as well when you go out for a meal. The waiter will bring over our food and we say, thank you very much. We usually pray for our food before who here prays, so it says blessing over their food for a few people. And they say we usually pray for our food before we eat, but we'd much rather pray for someone who is alive than something that was dead. Is there anything that I can pray for you for? They're seeing tens of people every week come to faith from unchurched backgrounds. Because they're not just doing theory, they're putting it into practice in simple, replicatable ways that anyone here could go out and either take that up as a daily habit or not, weekly habit or not. What are your daily habits? What are your weekly habits? And something that Steve, I'll get him to just share again actually, rather than me, is there's a book called Surprise the World by Michael Frost. And he talks about a rhythm called bells, bless, eat, listen, learn, and send. I won't say any more about it than that. But it's basically about how do you encourage your congregation to develop daily and weekly habits of life that put all of that gospel theory into daily practice. Did you want to say anything about that? Because I know you've done a bit.
Our church were really inspired by the Michael Frost stuff on bells, and it's well worth just Googling that and finding it. It's a really short read. But essentially it's about how do we make church community actually about something, about a lifestyle, about something that you join in with, rather than just a set of beliefs that you agree with. So we chucked out our church covenant, which was a lovely document full of very nice statements and things, but we decided we just wanted 5 statements, 5 really practical statements. When you become a church member of our church, you join in with this way of life. And so we say that at Covenant Baptist Church we are a family that eats together, we're a family that prays and worships together, we're a family that shares together, we're a family that plays together. We had play in there. Sometimes we do play Sundays, which are cool. And we are a family that is on mission together. And so when I'm bringing people into membership of our church, we're talking through this, and I'm not saying, hey, oh, do you match up with our beliefs? Because hopefully we've been through that journey a little bit before then. But we say, actually, no, it means something. It's not easy to be a part of our church. It's not just you join and sign a thing and then you can vote in a church meeting. But actually, no, it's about buying into a lifestyle that we're all committed to. Do you want to join this story that we're part of? Do you want to join this way of doing things? And it's been incredible, actually. I think it's changed the whole way that we talk as a church. It's certainly changed the way that we bring people into membership and the commitment levels of the people that we have as members now. It's transformed. We did this about 3 years ago, and it's been an utter blessing.
Fantastic. So that's everything from me and Steve. I'm going to introduce Katie now. Katie's from Fusion, which is a student network organisation. I'm not going to say too much. I'm really passionate about Fusion. When I was doing student work, they're an incredible resource, and they do great work. And I think as a Baptist family, there are a few more strategically important things that we can be engaging in than this area. I know it won't be relevant to everyone in this room, but to those that it is, and to us actually as a family, as the Baptist family in the UK, we need to all, whether we're in university towns or not, see the importance of this field of mission. And Katie, I think in her intro, is going to say a bit about why and why she's passionate about it. Katie.
So hi, I'm Katie and I work for Fusion. Fusion is passionate about seeing students connected into the heart of the local church when they go to university, but also seeing the local church right at the heart of student mission, like leading the way in students, like sharing Jesus, inviting their friends to church, and like bringing them to know Christ. I'd love to tell you a little bit about my friend Reese. I met him recently, also at Leicester. Leicester's come up twice today. But he had no experience of church at all. So he came to uni completely unchurched, and his friend Georgia in his halls just invited him along. And he was like, why not? And I think it's really cool, the experience, they're like the experienced generation, millennials. And I think when you hit university, it's like all of the options are like there for you to try. You know, you can try lacrosse or like Quidditch or like literally anything. And when Georgia said, would you like to try church? And having lived with her and seen that she was authentic and was actually living it, he was like, why not? And then came along and got like caught up in their community and really felt genuine friendship. And he's now been baptised. He's not even finished his first year, which is incredible. But I just think that's a really cool kind of story for the church to actually think, how can we invite all students to try church, not just the Christian students? Which I just love. But I guess it's interesting because can I ask you a question? Who here is in a uni town and who is a church that probably has sixth formers? If you're in a uni town. Okay, and then the rest of you, do you all send your young people to uni? Yeah? Great, so I guess I want to encourage you guys that aren't in a uni town, that you guys have a really key part to play in the future of students, because the way that they are prepared for university makes such a difference to their experience of university. There's a statistic that says 73% of Christians lose their faith at uni, which is that's hard to hear. It is from 2011, so take it with a pinch of salt. And again, it's one of those stats that is difficult to quantify, so it's not like a hard and fast 73%. But that's such a big statistic that there's such a big drop-off rate, particularly when only 1% of students are Christians. Like, we're losing 73% of the one, which is insane. So I just want to encourage you guys who are sending your young people, your year 13s to church, to really think about what it looks like to equip them for that journey, to talk to them about their identity in Christ, and also the call on their lives. I think uni is such like a minefield, and often when they go, they're either going because it's a good uni town for their course, that's the best degree they can get in their subject, or it's the only uni that accepted them. Whereas actually, they are being called to that city, they have a God-ordained purpose in that place, and I think it's their home church to really enforce that and send them to university excited about a life of mission is key. And students is so niche, it's a really niche part of millennials, but I think it's so different, culturally, there's a shift for students. But I really would encourage you to think about how you get them thinking about not only the start and connecting into churches, but the culture of university, the opportunities they can have and the legacy they can leave, because they're going to be there for at least 3 years, maybe up to 7, So if you get them thinking, actually, how can I engage in this culture? How can I run at it, share who Jesus is, and make a difference in this place? And I think as a church that's sending them to go, you play a really key role in stopping that drop-off, where they hit uni and don't connect with the church. But as Fusion, cheeky plug for our resources, we have really great resources to help you prepare them, whether that you're a youth worker or a church leader who wants to run a course or anything like that. We've got loads of stuff, so I can chat about that if you want to. But we also have an app that it's called Student Link Up. You just type that into the App Store. Link Up is one word. And what it does, before they even leave home, they can connect with university. So if you're going to Bristol in 2017, you'd literally put in Bristol 2017, and it'll connect you up with all the student churches there. And it means that the student workers can then get in touch with them. So it's just a really practical tool for you guys who are sending your young people to know that you've kind of bridged that gap. So I'd really encourage you to get them downloading it. And also if you're a uni church, get on that map. Make sure that students can find you. You just do it online. Again, I can chat to you after. But yeah, I'd encourage you to. But yeah, I would definitely say that they're an experienced generation and they're also a community generation. So I would definitely say think creatively about how you're engaging with millennials. It doesn't need to look like come to church. There's one church in Surrey who they thought, okay, how do we engage with students? How do we find like a neutral ground? So we're inviting them to try church, but what does that look like? So they met in a pub before their Sunday evening service. So they took all their students down there. So this is probably relevant if you're those guys in a uni town. But they met at a pub, hung out, and then so it gave the students time to build community, but also to welcome in the new students. And then they'd all head on to church. And this is a crazy story, literally this story, but this is a classic millennial story. There was a girl who was watching a video on YouTube. I don't actually know what the video is, but she watched it and gave her life to Jesus watching this video. But then she was completely unchurched, so had no clue then what to do. A friend invited her to the pub, then they went to church, and now she's stuck in with the life of the church. So I'd definitely say, like, think creatively about how you're engaging with millennials and students, and what that looks like, and how to engage in the church. But yeah.
I hope you're inspired. There's a pile of information at Baptist Assembly condensed into a very small space, isn't there? It would be really, really good just to root maybe one thing that has stuck out to you from that presentation in the reality for here and now that you can take with you away from this place. Let's do that just by a quick chat with someone that's with you, a couple of people either side of you, just to root one thing, and then I'm going to draw us back together again, and then we'll close this seminar. So let's root what you've heard, one thing that has stuck with you that you'll go back, think on, and work on some more. So just to say that these guys will all be around at the end. If you want to have a chat, then please do. Take a look at the stuff that Fusion have got that's on the table, and talk a little bit more to Katie. To say as well that there's other bits and bobs of information and resource. This comes from Freedom in Christ, a workshop on discipleship with millennials. So there's some information about that as well. What we've intentionally not done is just chuck a load of resources at you on purpose, because there is no programmatic fix to this. Hopefully what you've got from this presentation is that there's something far more foundational about how we are and who we are that is likely to engage this generation so much more than any one programme or anything like that we can possibly do. So as you take that away, please think on that some more. After this seminar's finished, we need to vacate this room onto the next one. If you've not decided which seminar to go to at past, I'm going to big up the one that's in this room. We've just spoken about the fact that this is a missing generation from our churches. The next seminar is looking at new ways to pioneer and to be church, to create Christian community with the 94% of the population that are not yet engaged with the church. A good chunk of them are 18 to 35s, are they not? So if you've decided, God bless you where you go and you will be blessed. If you've not decided, stick around because you'll be blessed. You will be blessed here. Listen, can I pray for us before we go? Let's pray. And Father God, we thank you for your heart of love and compassion for all that you have created. Thank you for this generation of people who you love. Jesus, you gave your life for this generation. Jesus, thank you for the example of your life lived before us, an authentic life that was full of passion, that was demonstrating what the kingdom of God looked like, that was absolutely relational with those people that you came across, even those that were different to yourself or your background. Father, thank you so much, Lord, for the cultures that you inhabited and that you were authentic within. May the gospel, the unchanging truth of your gospel, reach all, including this generation. And Spirit, thank you that you empower us for the task. So Holy Spirit, now, empower us gathered in this place for this task of reaching this, your world, with your message of love and compassion, Lord, with your message of forgiveness and salvation, with your message of hope, both for the present and for the future, in a changing world, in a world that is full of insecurity, that we find hope in you, our Lord and our Saviour. If after every phrase I pray you can speak out as loud as you can, Jesus, now lead on. From where we are to where you need us to be. Jesus, now lead on. From the security of what we know to the adventure of what you will reveal to us. Jesus, now lead on. To refashion the fabric of this world until it resembles the shape of your kingdom. Jesus, now lead on. Because good things, because good things are prepared for all those who love you. Jesus, now lead on. So let us go, and let us go in the faith that God gives us to reach those people that are beyond his kingdom at the moment with the love and the passion that he's given us. Amen? Amen.